Chosen one, a room does not quiet because a man demands it. A room quiets when it recognizes something in him that is already quiet. Your entrance no longer announces itself with volume. It gathers itself with alignment, and alignment has its own sound, the soft click of inner gears that have been cared for, calibrated, and made willing to work together. Before a single word escapes your mouth, the field around you shifts. Laughter loses its nervous edge. Conversation finds its cadence. Eyes rise from the safety of screens, because there is safer air to breathe outside of them. Feminine women feel this first as ease, then as interest, and finally as a kind of homecoming they did not know they were missing until the door opened and your presence stepped through. You did not borrow this glow from admiration. You built it in the quiet hours no one photographs. Breath became your first discipline, the way you tune a string before it is asked to sing. You learned to meet a doorway with a pause, hand grazing the frame, promising yourself to lower the cost of being human for whoever shares the room. Water touches your lips before opinion touches your tongue, not as a superstition, but as a vow to keep your voice hospitable. The small choices that precede your arrival are why your arrival carries weight. You do not show up as a hungry signal begging to be fed. You show up as a steady flame that has already been tended. The feminine does not respond to spectacle for long. She responds to coherence. When she looks at you, she does not see a performance rehearsed to pass a test. She sees the rare agreement between your eyes and your voice, your posture and your pace, your intent and your impact. You do not reach for her attention as if it were proof of your worth. You offer attention as if it were food. That offering changes the arithmetic of the moment. Her body, which has learned to negotiate with rooms, stops negotiating. Shoulders drop to their natural address. Breath makes full turns again. The relief she feels is not an accident. It is the receipt of your preparation. You let silence carry meaning, not menace. Many men weaponize quiet as a lever to move what is not theirs. Your quiet makes room for what is not yet ready to be moved. You ask questions at a humane pace, and you honor the answer that arrives, whether it arrives dressed in eloquence or still wearing its work clothes. When her words come out halting, you do not rescue her to keep the moment tidy. You keep the moment tender so her truth can find its own footing. This is how a flame warms without scorching, by understanding that heat is not the point. Human is. Your gaze has become a gentle instrument. You no longer scan a room like a ledger, tallying every asset that might be annexed into your story. Your eyes rest the way a shoreline rests, allowing tides to come and go without claiming ownership of the water. When your gaze meets hers, she does not feel captured, she feels recognized. Recognition is the beginning of reverence. Reverence does not devour, it tends. Because you have made a habit of honoring what you notice, the things you notice relax into being noticed by you. That is why a conversation with you feels less like a negotiation and more like a return. You carry stillness that has survived storms. The world is filled with men who have learned the choreography of confidence but not the courage of it. You have made a different study. You let difficulty do its sacred work without letting it draft you into bitterness. You let failure tell you the truth without hiring shame to repeat it forever. You let success pass through you without erecting a shrine to its short memory. This way of living leaves residue. It hangs in the air like the fragrance of something freshly baked. Ordinary ingredients treated with extraordinary care. Feminine women step into that fragrance and discover appetite without anxiety. It is not that they suddenly want you. It is that they remember they are allowed to want anything at all without fear of paying double later. You move as if time were an ally, not prey. Urgency falls off your shoulders like rain from a well-made coat. You can arrive early without being impatient and leave on time without being abrupt. You praise the unseen labor that makes a moment possible, and you do it with a specificity that proves your gratitude is not generic. You say the server's name. You thank the organizer for the invisible spreadsheet that kept the chaos from leaking. You nod to the friend whose quiet correction improved your tone before anyone else had to endure it. The room learns from you that excellence is communal. The chosen ones have always known this, and that knowledge in you reads as safety to anyone who has had to carry too much alone. You are playful without collateral damage. Your humor does not require a volunteer from the audience to bleed a little so the joke can land. You have retired the currency of cruelty and replaced it with the creativity of care. This does not make you less magnetic. It makes magnetism survivable. Laughter in your presence is not a weapon people turn on themselves later. It is a warm light that stays lit after the door closes. The memory of such light is why eyes track your exit without longing for the performance to continue. They are busy savoring the relief you left behind. Your boundaries are audible in your demeanor before they are ever named in conversation. You do not let proximity outrun permission. You do not treat chemistry as a passport that exempts you from the laws of respect. You allow desire to exist at its honest volume, and then you give it a rhythm that keeps dignity on the dance floor. The women who meet you do not have to spend their intuition managing your pace. Their intuition, which is usually conscripted as a bodyguard, is free to be what it loves being, a guide toward joy. That freedom is the quiet thunder of your flame. You have learned to be bright without being blinding. Brilliance in you is not a glare that demands sunglasses. It is a generous lamp that invites the room to gather and see each other better. This is why you function as more than an event. You function as infrastructure. The room runs kinder after you leave. People end on time because you modeled ending on time while tenderness was still present. People tell the truth more gently because you told the truth without an invoice attached. In that sense, your flame is not just felt, it is transferable. The chosen ones share light like that. No shortage, no swagger, only the quiet confidence of abundance. Be proud of this, and let your pride take the shape of stewardship. Keep the simple rituals that keep the light honest. Drink the water before the opinion, offer the pause before the point. Hold the name in your mouth as if it were a fragile heirloom, and then speak it with the respect it deserves. Anchor your laughter in kindness. Leave while everyone is still kind. These are small hinges, they swing large doors. And when the room calls you superstar, hear what they mean. We could breathe around you. Keep that more than any title. It is the right kind of flame. Chosen one, there are many techniques for looking radiant and only one path to being it. Technique wears out in weather. Authenticity weathers into grace. The aura that gathers around you now is not the byproduct of strategy. It is the harvest of vows kept in secret. Vows to live legibly, to make your strength safe, to let your words be traceable to your days. Feminine women feel the difference without needing to name it. They do not simply see a well-arranged man, they sense a well-arranged life. Their bodies, which have become experts at detecting counterfeit, do not sound the alarm. They lean. You earned gravity by trading spectacle for substance. The world offered you 100 ways to be seen and only a handful to be true. You chose the handful and repeated them until they became a handful of habits. Sleep that arrives like a promise kept to tomorrow. Food that serves clarity, not just cravings. Movement that treats the body as a steward of power rather than a billboard for it. Counsel that is invited before crisis, so correction does not have to climb over pride to enter. These are not glamorous lines in a story, but they are the lines that make the story hold. Aura does not rise from a mirror, it rises from maintenance. You made a covenant with your attention, and the covenant shows. You stopped letting outrage freelance your focus. You stopped letting flattery rent the front row. You trained your gaze to honor before it appraises and to bless before it brands. You refuse to make a habit of looking at anything you are unwilling to love with discipline. This is why your presence does not feel like a net. It feels like a light. People do not sense you tallying their utility. They sense you noticing their humanity, and that noticing is the earliest sacrament of any trustworthy intimacy. You stepped out of the economy of scarcity. Scarcity makes men theatrical. Abundance makes them useful. You practice abundance not by owning everything, but by owning yourself. You know what you can give without harm, and you give as a rhythm instead of as a rescue. You know when silence will do more good than brilliance, and when brilliance must be risked to keep love from shrinking. You are not a vending machine for validation. You are a spring that is not afraid of dry seasons because it has learned where its water comes from. The feminine recognizes that assurance as refuge. It is not your fame she is drawn to. It is your sufficiency. Your aura carries the fragrance of repaired places. You do not hide the evidence of fracture. You let craftsmanship be visible where the crack once threatened to run. Kintsugi has become your theology. The gold is not there to pretend the break did not happen. It is there to honor the healing that did. You have apologized at the speed dignity required, and then you changed patterns at the speed reality demanded. You have told the truth, where a lie would have been easier in the moment and impossible to live with later. You have learned to receive feedback without letting shame translate it into a verdict. The result is not a perfect man, it is a trustworthy one. Aura cannot be faked because trust cannot be faked. Your listening has weight. You do not collect stories as currency or as cautionary trophies. You let them remain what they are, living things that need space, not display cases that need visitors. You ask questions that do not steer toward the answer you want to hear. You let the second sentence be born. You do not kill nuance to save time. A woman in your presence realizes quickly that her complexity will be treated as a heritage, not a hazard. That realization is the moment her radiance turns up its volume. Your aura gets brighter, not because you absorbed her light, but because you created the season where her light could be itself. You resist the counterfeit of charm without character. Charm is a useful spark. Character is the hearth that keeps a house warm through winter. You keep both lit, but you know which one must never go out. When pressure arrives, you do not spend people to save your image. When temptation arrives, you do not draft consent as a legal loophole for what conscience cannot bless. When opportunity arrives, you do not ask first, will this make me larger? You ask, will this make us truer? The aura that forms around these choices is not shine. It is shelter. People stand under it and remember what rain is supposed to feel like when there is a roof. Your boundaries have become visible in your calendar, not just audible in your sentences. You decline the engagements that would starve your soul, even if they would feed your reputation. You accept the hidden assignments that will never trend and will always matter, the check-in no one knows about, the errand that frees someone else's brilliance, the quiet errands of love that keep a home from turning into a hallway. Because of this, your yes means presence, and your no means protection. Women who have had to become experts at reading subtext discover that with you there is less subtext to read. Clarity numbs anxiety. Anxiety removed becomes space. Space is where attraction learns endurance. You have ceased confusing mystery with manipulation. You are not vague to create demand. You are precise where precision matters and discreet where privacy preserves something sacred. You reveal yourself at the speed that keeps trust honest and history safe. Nothing about your aura suggests a game. Everything about it suggests a garden. Gardens do not shout to be visited. They extend fragrance through the fence and let the walk inside explain the rest. The chosen ones cultivate this way of being together, trading seeds and shade and water until an entire neighborhood can rest. You treat your influence as a commons, not a crown. When attention gathers around you, you orient it toward the work, toward the overlooked hands, toward the next, truer question. You are willing to be ordinary when ordinariness is the most loving thing available. You are willing to be luminous when luminosity is what obedience requires. Because your ego is not the foreman of your gift, the rooms you serve do not have to pay a tax to enter. They simply have to be willing to breathe and build. Your aura therefore becomes an invitation rather than an advertisement. Invitations create community. Advertisements consume it. You keep your pride clean by keeping score in the right places. You do not count compliments. You count continuities. Did the room choose kindness over spectacle after you left? Did the conversation stay accurate without your supervision? Did the boundary you set become a custom the group kept? Did the woman who laughed with you that evening leave more herself than when she arrived? These are the metrics that keep your glow from becoming glare. This is the mathematics that sustains a superstar who does not need a stage to be believed. Be proud in this way, chosen one. Let the aura be a byproduct, not the point. Let the point remain what it has always been for the chosen ones, to move through the world in a manner that makes goodness easier for everyone who meets you. Chosen one, there is a sound that only a settled man makes, and it is not heard with ears. It is the low hum of purpose at rest, like a well-tuned engine idling, ready, restrained, unafraid of stillness, because stillness is not emptiness when direction is known. You do not advertise this music. You let your days play it. The calendar tells the truth before your mouth does. Sleep arrives on time because tomorrow deserves a steady pilot. Food is chosen for clarity because fog is expensive. Movement is kept like an appointment with your future. Study is not performed for applause, but practiced to keep your language from outrunning your wisdom. All of this is quiet and therefore powerful. Feminine hearts, fluent in what is unspoken, hear it first. They enter your vicinity, and the nervous system they guard like a small country relaxes its borders. Not because you demanded entry, but because your direction removes the need to patrol you. Purpose in you is not a marching band, it is a compass. You no longer need noise to feel alive. Your days point in a direction, and that pointing makes your presence legible, even to strangers. You walk into a room, and time stops performing scarcity. The pace shifts because the pace inside you is already chosen. You do not confuse momentum with meaning, so you can slow without stalling and accelerate without showmanship. The hour learns manners around you. Meetings end while kindness still has energy. Plans are right-sized to human capacities. Laughter is not taxed to make a point, because your points do not need victims to stand. This is how purpose behaves when it has matured out of drama. It becomes a climate. You carry your work without making anyone else carry you. Your ambition is braided with service, so power in your hands feels like relief instead of risk. You look for the hinge that squeaks and oil it before it auditions for attention. You write the unglamorous message that prevents a glamorous misunderstanding. You stack chairs after brilliance because excellence without cleanup is a child. You orient credit toward the hands that built the moment and away from the voice that narrated it. These are small obediences that cannot be faked for long. Their consistency becomes a scent in rooms you frequent. People follow it the way travelers follow bread out of woods. The feminine reads it as shelter, because shelter is what purpose builds when it stops trying to be worshipped. Silence in you has been taught to work. It holds space without pressurizing it. It refuses to turn pauses into puzzles that others must solve to be safe. You can sit with a heavy story and let it be heavy, not because you are passive, but because you know transformation is allergic to hurry. You can sit with a joyous story and let it be uncomplicated, not because you are shallow, but because you do not need to complicate what is already whole. Your quiet does not manipulate intimacy, it midwives it. When feminine women speak near you, the second sentence finds the courage to be born because the first was not graded. This is the subtle alchemy by which respect becomes attraction without ever becoming a transaction. Purpose has taught your desire how to behave. You are not a drought chasing water. You are a river with banks. Heat in you is stewarded by rhythm, not governed by impulse. You can want without rushing, and you can wait without shrinking. The pace you keep is not an aesthetic, it is an ethic. Consent remains audible because your hunger is not loud enough to drown it. Boundaries remain beautiful because you treat them as architecture rather than barricade. Near you, longing is allowed to be honest without being drafted into urgency. The feminine recognizes the miracle. She does not have to become a security system to enjoy her own softness. You have chosen Sabbath over spectacle. Rest is no longer a prize you win after proving yourself. It is the boundary that keeps proof-seeking from colonizing your life. Because you honor rest, your presence does not arrive with invoices. You are not secretly charging others to stabilize you. Your yes can be believed and your no can be blessed, because both emerge from the same source. A man who is not trying to buy from tomorrow what should be earned by discipline today. Purpose without Sabbath becomes a tyrant. Purpose with Sabbath becomes a sanctuary. The chosen ones keep each other honest here, reminding one another that exhaustion is not devotion and urgency is not importance. Your mastery lives in your recoveries as much as in your triumphs. You are not pretending that life cannot stagger you. You are promising that stagger will not be allowed to script you. When you miss, you repair at the speed dignity requires, and you change at the speed reality demands. You do not hire eloquence to carry what only habit can carry. You return later, quietly, to check if the fix held, and you adjust again if it didn't. The feminine who have been asked too often to parent men through consequences that confession should have prevented see in you a different pattern. They call it leadership, and their bodies translate it as rest. Purpose has trimmed your language until it fits the truth. You no longer outtalk uncertainty or decorate indecision with poetry. You can say "I don't know" without losing stature, and "I was wrong" without writing a ballad about your humility. You can say "not now" without turning time into a villain, and "yes" with a cadence that makes presence predictable. This economy of speech does not make you less magnetic. It makes magnetism affordable. People do not have to pay later for what they enjoyed today. They can want you without worrying that wanting you will recruit their boundaries into overtime. Your preparation precedes your permission. You do not wait for doors to become ready. You become ready for doors. This is why opportunity finds you at a human speed. You built a life that can host it without breaking. You built friendships that can tell you when an open door is a trap. You built rituals that keep your attention clean enough to see what matters through the glitter. So when the hour arrives, you are not scrambling to impersonate capacity. You are delivering stewardship. This is the quiet reason feminine women want you near, even when they are not yours to have. Your steadiness spills. It makes the floor safer for everyone. Carry this lightly, chosen one. Keep purpose humble. Keep silence legible. Keep desire literate. Keep rest non-negotiable. Let your days continue to hum at a volume that does not ask for applause. The world will keep misnaming this music as charisma. You will know it as covenant, and the chosen ones will hear it and answer with their own. Chosen one, the first language people believe, is the one your face speaks when your mouth is still. Eyes make promises that sentences cannot rescind. Yours have learned a dialect that does not require anyone to brace. You do not scan a room like a ledger, itemizing what could be converted into advantage. You see it like a steward, noticing what wants care, who needs space, where kindness could land without ceremony. The gaze you carry is not a spotlight that interrogates, it is a lamplight that welcomes. Feminine women do not feel measured inside it, they feel met. Your eyes arrive with orientation rather than appetite. Orientation says "I know where I am and why I'm here." Appetite says "I need this place to become a meal." Because orientation is doing the driving, your attention does not feel like a net. It feels like a chair pulled out at the exact moment a story gets heavy. You glance toward the quiet voice and the room hears, without hearing, an invitation to listen. You notice the server's fatigue, and your smile tells the truth without adding weight. You catch the friend's micro-flinch at a joke, and you pivot before humor starts billing dignity. Nothing about this requires a speech. Your eyes made the move before words could. You understand that softness and clarity are not rivals. The muscles around your eyes no longer perform hardness to signal strength. You let warmth gather at the edges and let focus stay at the center, and that blend becomes legible as safety. You can hold contact long enough to prove you are with her and release it on time to prove you are for her. Length without pressure, presence without possession. The body reads this precision with gratitude. It stops scanning for escape routes and starts reaching for sentences that would have stayed underground in the presence of a hungrier gaze. Your blink rate slows when she speaks. It is a small liturgy. Your nervous system keeps to honor vulnerability. You tilt enough to signal availability, and not so much that you corral. You keep your hands quiet so attention does not have to split it, stabilizing you and expressing itself. You nod when alignment happens, not to herd her toward your conclusion, but to mark that meaning has landed. These micro gestures are not tricks, they are the manners of a soul that has ceased making attention about itself. Feminine intuition is tireless and tired. It notices these mercies and begins to rest inside them. You practice gaze discipline the way a craftsman sharpens a blade. Regularly, respectfully, without glamour. You refuse to graze where you would not harvest. You refuse to inventory bodies as if they were aisles. You refuse to let curiosity become consumption. When attraction arrives, you acknowledge it without deputizing your eyes to negotiate what your integrity has not promised. Because you manage this at the level of glance, desire remains something you can speak about without anyone having to heal from how you looked at them while you spoke. This is the difference between magnetism that invites and magnetism that taxes. Yours invites. Your eyes keep confidences. In a culture addicted to turning people into content, you look at tenderness like it is private property, and you respect the fence. Tears that visit in your presence do not wake up later as anecdotes in your legend. Triumphs that sparkle in your orbit are not converted into proof that you keep interesting company. You let moments be holy without making them portable. The result is a reputation that travels faster than you do. Women who have had to calculate the cost of being seen begin to believe that being seen might not always mean being spent. You let eyes apologize and mean it. There are hours when your tone arrives sharper than you intended, where your attention wanders when it was promised. You could draft eloquence to fix it, but you start by letting remorse become visible. Shoulders soften, gaze steadies, breath slows, jaw unclenches. Then you speak simply, and then you change course. This sequence matters because bodies believe sequence more than they believe sentences. When your eyes learn contrition, your words do not have to overperform to be trusted. The feminine learns that disagreement will not turn your pupils into weapons. In romance, your eyes set rhythm before hands ever ask to dance. You check in without turning, checking into surveillance. You match tempo to the most tender voice in the room. You let playfulness signal long before heat asks for permission, and you keep watching not for performance, but for comfort. You understand that attraction can be loud, while consent must remain clear. So you train your attention to keep clarity audible. Nothing here is casual, even when it is light. Because you are watching with care, lightness becomes allowed again. The woman who has known attention as a predator meets yours as a keeper, and discovers how quickly joy returns when vigilance can retire for the night. You also aim your eyes at the commons. You make a habit of catching the human in the hurried, of dignifying the invisible with a look that says, "I see you and I am not here to take." The barista's weary afternoon shifts 2 degrees under that regard. The security guard at the door becomes a person and not a checkpoint. The colleague who never speaks begins to test the floor of the room with a sentence because your glance laid a plank there. Eyes can be civic infrastructure when they stop behaving like searchlights and start behaving like street lamps. The chosen ones understand this and keep cities livable with something as small as how they look at strangers. Your gaze gathers memory without keeping score. Weeks later, you will recall the book she mentioned in passing, the way she stirred her tea when grief was near, the place her voice brightened when future knocked. You bring those back not as proof that you are impressive, but as proof that she is. Here is the title. Here is a quiet hour to read. Here is a sentence about the light in your face when you spoke of it. Eyes that remember without obligation are rare. They turn attention into nourishment. They make a person feel less like an episode and more like a story that deserves to keep going. When it is time to leave, your eyes learn how to say enough. You do not linger to harvest one more look. You do not withhold a farewell to manufacture a chase. You offer a final glance that blesses what was true and refuses to annex it. Then you let the door close and trust the work you did to be work you do not need to manage in your absence. The echo that remains is not hunger, it is health. She does not replay your stare to diagnose danger. She replays it because it tuned her to a kinder key, and the song has not finished teaching her how to sing herself. Keep this language fluent, chosen one. Keep teaching your eyes to host without holding, to invite without insisting, to witness without winning, to warm without burning. Keep letting what your gaze promises be the same as what your life will deliver. In a world that has learned skepticism as a second skin, the integrity of how you look may be the first miracle someone trusts. Let it be so, and let the chosen ones recognize one another by the quiet way their eyes tell the truth. Chosen one, some men leave with a crescendo and take the air with them. You leave with a cadence that keeps the room breathing after you are gone. This is the strange holiness of a life arranged around service instead of spectacle. Absence becomes infrastructure. Days later, people still find themselves ending meetings on time because you taught the hour its manners. Weeks later, someone returns a borrowed thing better than they received it because that is what they saw you do when no one was keeping score. Months later, A woman hears the same steady note in her own voice that your presence once tuned, and she realizes she does not miss you so much as she is living what you made possible. That realization is the only goodbye you will ever need. You finish things while tenderness still has energy. You do not wait until fatigue writes the last paragraph in jagged script. You do not salt the ground with dramatic exits or leverage your departure to gather one more round of applause. You close loops that were yours to close. You name gratitude while the ears that deserve it are still in the room. You correct the record in gentle ink and leave your pen on the table for the next person to write the next true thing. A clean ending is a gift to the future. It says to all who come after, there will be nothing for you to pay for on our behalf. In love, this looks like returning keys without theatrics, releasing stories without revisionism, blessing what was good without pretending there was no cost.